in mind we were without a bookkeeper all year. So we've updated our current year revenues, which we feel like we're in pretty good shape. More importantly is the updated revenue projections for next fiscal year. Anything you see in red is updated information. I'm going to start. Sherry can jump in wherever she wants to or needs to, and I'll defer to her on some of these things. But we have updated numbers, in particular from the state. We did tweak some numbers as we felt comfortable doing, and we feel like we have a good budget for you to consider and ultimately approve. Next Tuesday night is our first budget hearing. So if you look on the proposed budget 2021-22 on page 1, the far right column, those numbers in red have been updated, most of them by the state, and some like, and y'all are going to have to work with us tonight a little bit to forgive us, because of the programming era, these spreadsheets write out the numbers. So I'll just kind of say on the, about midway through, the account number is 323700, waste management. 323700. That number increased from the last meeting. More up-to-date number is 90,000. We did have it at 70,000. I'm sorry, the actual amount for this year is 95,000. That was at 70,000 last week. So we did get updated information. We had only budgeted 70,000 for this year, and we're going to project the revenue at 90,000, being a little bit conservative for next year. So I just point that out right off the bat. All the other state numbers, like local option fuel tax, third line down, that's increased, as the one right below it, the new local option fuel tax, 20,278, that's an increase. The discretionary sales tax, that's your 1 cent surtax that we get through the county, that's going to increase projectedly. That's going to increase considerably from what we had initially. So these revenues are going to be in a lot better shape than what we have been projecting. This is all based on what the state information is. You'll have that for full backup with your agenda binder for next week. But these are true projections from the state. Even on the half-cent sales tax, going down to about midway is 33.5180, 33.5180 half-cent sales tax. That projection is much better than we had last week. Now the bad news, just about 3/4 of the way down, account number 361100, interest earned, 361100, interest earned. We had over projected for this current year. We think that was a bookkeeping error. That interest is not going to be 23,000. Based on this year, we can only put that at about 4,800. So we did make that adjustment as well.
Slight difference.
Well, I think it was just a bad projection.
Oh.
So I appreciate the benefit of the doubt. Thank you.
Had to make a joke.
I failed to include the SBA interest. I only did the one for Team Bank. So that it will increase.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, that's good news.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll keep it low.
We'll keep it very conservative.
But we'll do it, make sure it's there.
The miscellaneous income, one before the bottom there. You know, we got a lot of money this year for past due business tax receipts and permit reissues. We're going to stay conservative, but that number is a little bit higher than what we were telling you last week, as is the billboard rentals. I think we had that at 33,000 last week. We did bump that up based on the new number that we have this week of a little bit over 36,000. Page 1, we'll go to page 2. Room searches, we stay conservative. And I will point out, going back to page 1, I hate to keep going back and forth like this, but the top line, 311100 at the rolling property taxes. You see, we've the actual amount for this year that we've collected is pretty close to what we projected, and I know we've got another round of probably small payments coming in, so we're really close, and we can use on that. And again, on the proposed budget, on that same line item, we feel like we're pretty conservative. We only budgeted up to 95% of what the tax collector was telling us. Again, our property taxes overall increased by 6%. So that's where the increase is. Any questions? I know I rambled on, it was all over the place. Sherry, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Because you did the bulk of the work on these updates.
Good. That question to you, I think I'll tell them a little bit about impact fee, actual amount collected versus what we budgeted.
You got mine, go right ahead.
Well, I just want to make sure that they understand the county impact fee. If you look to the far right, we actually collected $94,000 some odd dollars. That was between the years through EMMP, which is that's taking place across from Town Hall, as well as the Wingate property, the single-family home. So
We've already collected that.
we've already collected it. For the marriage group proposing the first building, which is the 4-unit building, and then EMMP across the street proposing the 8 condo warehouses, or 8 or 9, I think, and then the Wingate single-family home. Even though you collected 94,000, don't forget this is just a pass-through that you collect them on behalf of the county, and then we get to keep 3.4% because we're a pass-through. So for the county impact fees, that's going to increase as development continues, but you only get to keep 3.4%. The town's impact fee would incorporate your roads, your public buildings, your library, public buildings and Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation is quite expensive in terms of the revenue being collected. And then as a reminder, the zoning fees are pretty high because you've had a lot of applications. That should drop this year, fiscal year 21-22. You should not receive as much as you already have for zoning, which is account number 341-200, further down on the paper.
How do you say that zoning fees? That's a good one to look at for this current year. And I will say this, I'm going to jump in real quick with this thought. If you look at page 2.
I'm sorry, just before you do, Ken, just let the record reflect that Councilwoman Green stepped off the dais about 30 seconds ago and will be returning. Go right ahead, Ken.
On page 2 up at the top, if you look at where it says general fund, the actual amount that's been collected versus what was budgeted, we are right at it. We're about put about 30,000 off. So that's, this time of year, that's pretty good. We'll never make any guarantees, but I can almost promise we're going to exceed what we budgeted and be well under on the expenditure side. So I just thought I'd point that out. Go ahead, Sherry. I'm sorry.
There may be some line items in the revenue that come in through our bank account, but because we're operating technically without the account, we're having to do the figures manually. do that, but, there may be some hits here and there where you are off. And when I say off, I mean off as in increasing your revenue, not off as in decreasing. Remember FPL franchise fees and your utility tax, the 10% is based on the customer's usage, but FPL does a true up. So we calculated the FPL revenue for October through August 31st today. However, usually October's revenue is from September. It works similar to your utility billing revenue. And then you get plus an additional month. So with FPL, we should be on track. I think we budgeted 80,000. There's 2 more months worth of revenue that would be missing, which would be September and October. That would be counted in the 2021 fiscal year. And I think that's about it. All of your state revenue is calculated based on the state's website and where it's posted. We printed that out for your packet. You'll get it before next Tuesday. It's your backup information. So you can go and calculate these figures yourself or see that they've been confirmed. And the same thing in our system for our accounting software. You'll be able to tell, as in, if you look at building permits or business tax receipts, those things you'll get to see the backup for that this week as well. You'll get a packet that shows you the backup to confirm the numbers so that you can make sure that you do believe in them. If you look at fire inspections has 2 categories in our billing system. In your backup, when you receive it, you'll see annual fire inspections and you'll see fire inspections. They're done by the city of West Palm Beach, of course, annually, and then we also do them under a new BT application. So technically, your fire inspections in your backup, when you see it, will show approximately $4,800, but the total for fire inspections with the new BTs or the revisits, it equals about $7,000 some odd dollars. It's just that we have to manually add those categories together. That's why we see an increase with the updates that are in red. And then Ken can talk to you about the local ordinance where you agreed for that code enforcement violation, I believe, to go back to the special magistrate and settle on the fee that you guys negotiated. We expect to have another one or possibly 2 or maybe even 3 more to negotiate and settle for this coming fiscal year, much like with the McCray project when you guys agreed for and to see the special magistrate, you settled for the $18,000 plus. That's where you're getting that information from your codes. The sheriff's office, of course, that varies or fluctuates. It depends upon how businesses and or residents, how many false alarms they have. Sometimes the revenue is really good during certain months and sometimes it's not. So, but it's been quite steady the past couple of years. The parking citations, I don't think we did do an actual amount. That's also hit or miss. It depends upon who the officers are.
And
The
we
one
think it's
that
going
we
to go
had,
down because shortly it's gone.
it's gone, yes. So we expect to see a drop in that. If they turn into a handicap parking space, there's that one deputy. He's like a gator on the bank. He's literally right there, and that's $250 a pop. So he has since transferred out of our district. We may not see him as often. We may get the parking citations, but they'll probably be more than $30 parking citations than the $250. Because Deputy Shorty did not give anybody a break. He had 9 children and a king for parents, for a father. I mean, he got the ticket. So that's pretty much it on the revenue side. And then, of course, I reiterate what the manager said about the proposed budget revenue. That will also be in your backup. And you'll see the projections from the state.
And we're certainly open to your questions.
Okay. All Alrighty, so just based upon what the flow of things right now, what you're anticipating that we're not putting here because we're trying to be conservative, we're currently looking at balancing the budget, at least the general fund, by moving 62, well, considering 62,000 in contingency.
That's correct.
Okay, just in as much, again, not a crystal ball, but in as much as information as we have it right now is suggesting that we will or will not be using that. So just based upon the information we have at this point in time and trying to make an educated guess looking forward, we would not be using that 62 because we're anticipating some unbudgeted.
The 62 could also, in contingency, could represent, like if the Value Adjustment Board has a hearing and it's ruled against us, that the clerk's office would get an invoice from the tax collector.
Mhm.
I think we got one the other day for $24,000 or $25,000.
Correct.
It would come out of this line item. But outside of that, we did not anticipate.
Mhm.
Okay, maybe I had a misunderstanding.
Okay.
Previously, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Previously, previous meeting, there was originally that, Roosevelt shared an item with us, the understanding that item was coming out of contingency, is that correct?
And that was on the
Yeah,
utility
utility.
side? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yes.
All
And I'll
right.
just speak to that real quick. On the utility side, the items that he's talking about getting still this fiscal year, we're hoping that it doesn't have to come out of contingency. We're hoping we still have enough outside of the contingency line item. But if need be, I think it's 50,000 in utilities that's still there.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't confuse the budget.
That's okay. Alrighty. Okay, so just before we move from the revenue side of it, any questions, any other questions or comments, council, as it relates to the revenue side of it? That's page 1 and through line 38 or 100. Any questions or comments?
One comment I wanted to make, I know we had, 36, 21, 30, community park rental,
Yes.
and one above that, community center rental. I know we had decreased the budget significantly last year, because we had a lot of, reimbursements. So this is the amount that has been made since we had the working.
The column on the left, yes, ma'am, in red, for the community center, 21,150, and the park, 8,375. Yes, ma'am. It's been busy. It's been unreal. And we understand too, spike in numbers. We could have to come back to you and say, hey, we need to adjust these revenue figures. That's a possibility. All things being equal, we feel like this is going to hold up. And spoiler alert, next month, maybe even next Tuesday, we'll come back to council with the idea of some potential bump up in fees. That's something we can do at any point, even outside of the budget, but we'll give you some ideas.
This will be on my resolution, effective for the October 1st. And we're currently charging for the COVID rate, so we have a position included in the budget for the community center or recreation park attendant. So the COVID cleaning will go to that recreation park attendant instead of us paying an outside entity to do it. And that's why we can increase the rate. The customer won't experience the pain of the increase because we would be taking away the COVID rate that's currently built into their fee. And it's kind of like they would stay at the same rate, but because we have the park recreation attendant do the COVID cleaning. But it's a very good rate. We hear that all the time compared to other places. This rate is a very good rate.
It's just popular.
the deposit can go up too. They do get that back, but it's not enough to cover it, so tax money. They work to pay a lot. That'll change with the park and recreation attendant being on, so. And do it the 7th, right?
Ms. Sullivan, may I ask you a question? How is it, how does the town clean it? I call it COVID clean after it's clean. You get a company to come in and clean? I'm asking for a reason.
Have our custodian service that works out here, Lorena, our L&M.
Ellen Mason.
Oh, they clean it? Oh, okay, great.
System set up just for sterilization.
Okay,
Every time before the use and after the use.
okay,
And they do it at town hall and here too, and also at the sheriff's office.
good.
Okay. Any other questions as it relates to the revenue side of the general budget? Okay, if not, I can.
On page 2, we start with, under the expenditure part, we start with legislative. A little bit of the expenditure increase last week. That's on that first line item there, 110. Everything else has stayed the same from, everything has stayed the same from the way it was presented last week. We're just open to any questions you might have or any deliberation you might want to engage in.
Any questions or comments as it relates to the legislative expenditures?
Jumping down to administration, everything salary-wise is built in with that 10% that we were talking about last week, the 10% adjustment. It's just a matter, and I do thank everyone. I was able to meet with, or if I didn't meet with you, I at least had a telephone conversation with you and explored some of your ideas and got your opinion on that. I think everyone's in favor of the 10%. I did hear one person say the 5% plus the 2,000 not bonus, I'll call it, would be in order, but the majority of council members were in favor of the 10%. It's just a matter of how you want to do it. If you want the 10%, now you may talk tonight, you may not be in favor of it, but based on my one-on-ones with everyone, it seemed like everyone was in favor in some form or another. If you want to give it all October 1st or split it up, like it had been suggested last week. And I think you're going to find a very thankful staff regardless, but that certainly would be your call. That's how you do that. And also, and I jumped into that, but the administration budget also includes the new bookkeeper position, or finance officer, whatever we end up calling it, bookkeeper for right now. And it also includes a good bit, or at least part of the new code person who's going to be combined with the water plant trainees. So a little bit of that is in there as well. And that's why that number has jumped up a little bit, plus the 10%. Again, the clerk has done a great job. She's gone back and checked the numbers as far as Social Security, health insurance, FRS, and we feel pretty good about these numbers. The numbers in red have changed slightly since last week. Any questions or comments?
Okay. Any questions or comments? I'm just actually just running through the numbers. If there's any council comments or questions.
Yes.
Okay. If you need to proceed, Ken, you can, and we can come back if there's any questions thereafter.
Okay, all right. Also, under administration, I'll point out real quick, it does include re-engaging with the lobbyist. We would have to do an RFP or RFQ for that. We put the amount back in that it was previously. On here, it shows that, let's see, let me make sure I've got it. We're showing 33,000, that's on line, or the account 319 under professional services. Showing 33,000 in administration or general fund, 15,000 in the utility fund. And the reasoning again is if we engage the services of a professional lobbyist this year, at least the manager feels strongly that we're really going to zero in on utility needs and going after that money. I think the lobbyist could be instrumental in this endeavor that David is talking about tonight. It could really help out with that a lot. And also economic development. That's the majority of what I feel like we should be looking at. Now, along the way, we probably pick up some money for recreation, maybe some road paving, but I think if you decide to hire that lobbyist, the emphasis will be on those two. No increase to legal fees. That's that. We did have money down account number 620, 45,000 improvements to town hall. We talked about that. That's to be determined if it's windows, shutters, or restroom renovations, or maybe a little bit of everything. And so that amount is just a raw number that's been put in there. We're in the early stages of getting quotes, and it's hard to get quotes. People are really busy covering that line of work. So that's it for administration. Any more comments? Jumping down to the police department, no increase, thank the Lord, this year. The next line item, 52,200. I did anticipate an increase. It has not happened. So if not, you'll know about it, and it would not be more than the 5% that I've included in there. So, but as of yet, they have not reached out to indicate that they're trying to pursue that. We do have an active interim agreement with them that would stand up for another year. Code and engineering, building official down at the bottom. That attorney fee, that's your special magistrate, comes in from time to time. That's probably, we're probably going to have a couple more hearings at least next year. The next line, engineering services, that's Van. Turning over the page. We're really not expecting too much as far as litigation this year, knock on wood. We do have, currently we do have 2 code enforcement officers. One is being paid from a $15,000 grant from the county that has not been factored into these expenditures, but will be. That's why that is slightly over as of right now. That's the highlights of that part. Solid waste, not anticipating an increase there, so that would remain the same. Public works, that's 2 full-time employees, one of those being your utility/public works director, Roosevelt Jones. There is another full-time position there and 1 part-time position coming out of that. And Sherry has done a good job updating these numbers, especially the workers' comp, insurance line items, FRS. We do down at the bottom of the page, we do have some miscoding, that's why that 30,000 is not where it's supposed to be. We've got a couple of line items interacting with each other and they shouldn't.
Count the first
Let me see. 467, it says RC2 canal. We charged our drain cleaning to that instead of, I think we should have charged it to, yeah, we got it confused. I'll have to clarify that. But it's the NPDES for the next year. That's the only amount that Van has asked for, and that's just continued cleaning of the drains. We've done a good job the last 3 years, so we don't have much to do this coming year. Yes, ma'am.
Not important, I'm just curious, who cleans out the canal?
It's supposed to be
Riviera Beach.
Riviera Beach.
Also.
And I think they are doing it now. There for a good while, it was kind of iffy.
Where do we, okay, I'm asking a question. Where do we have a canal in the town?
It's
behind 1601
right. It's their
What?
canal, but it's where our drainage goes. So we have a standing agreement with them as far as maintenance, usage and maintenance. They're required to clean it, and we pay a portion of that.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Yeah.
Behind 1601 Hill Avenue. Basically, the FPL easement right on the edge of town off Australian.
Oh, okay.
Now, on that item, we have an actual amount of 30,500, and we're budgeting 7.
7,000 would be the
And-
amount.
Okay, so is the 30,500 the actual amount we paid thus far? Or is that,
That's a
Misplaced.
That was our drain cleaning money
mhm,
for this year. And it's miscoded. We misbudgeted, we put it in the wrong line item when we budgeted,
mhm.
and we charged it to that. It shouldn't be that way. We did not pay anything beyond 7,000.
Okay. Alrighty, so the 30,500 would be reflected somewhere else, or
No,
it's just,
it was charged there. That was the drain cleaning contractor,
okay,
and had nothing to do with the canal. It was our Mangoni Park drains. So that number will come back to where it's supposed to, 7,000.
okay. Alrighty, okay, just procedural, let the record reflect that Councilman Smith is on the dais. Okay, reflects a drain cleaning. Okay, we're currently on 467. Can we get invoiced by Riviera Beach for this each month?
I haven't seen one,
I'm sorry?
not for canal maintenance. Haven't seen one.
Okay, so we just remit automatically to them, or?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, we're currently on page 4, line 467. There's the discussion at this time. But if there's any other comments as it relates to Public Works on page 4. Okay, now, so we have the 2 full-time and a part-time employee. Just as information, just quickly, I saw someone today. Do we have a new person?
We do, Mr. Kirk Whiteside.
Okay. We can discuss it. I was curious. Okay.
He's our new full-time.
He's a full-time Public Works?
Under building maintenance, meeting, so I think it's $700. Yeah, and we can public works to get into specific. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the public works, building maintenance, 462. I'm just trying to put, we did go over slightly, but on the budget slightly this year. I just in specifics what maintenance needs to be done or to again.
Your public works, that's mostly going to be town hall. And I can get you specifics on what was spent and to who. We can get you a printout of that. Show you. It's possible something was miscoded, but worst case, we have gone over slightly. Sometimes some of these line items, like the 463 and 465, sometimes they get interchanged, or one charge to one that should be to the other.
Other questions or comments? If we can just go back, if there's none, just a clarification on it. I think it's probably self-explanatory. But on page 4, line 345. Now, what happened there, we went over because out of that line item came the payment for the county grant employee.
That's correct. When
But
we
we're seeing it.
budgeted-
Mhm. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we budgeted this year, we just budgeted at 25, not knowing this was coming.
Mhm.
And so we haven't amended that because we are in pretty good shape on our bottom line. So that is over, but we will be getting the funds to reimburse that.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Any other council comments or questions as it relates to page 4 of the general fund budget? Any questions or comments? If not, we'll proceed to page 5.
We can come back to the public works on page 5 at the top, just jumping down to street maintenance. What we were talking about last week, Van and I went throughout the town, and Van evaluated each street in town, and we feel like for this coming fiscal year, that the priorities, 50th Street needs to be milled and repaved completely. There's other areas throughout town that need to be, what Van says, cut and patch. Cut out a section of it and you patch it. So that would be, I think when we talk about that 200,000, that may be a little bit of overkill if you're talking about just for one street, but it's in there. And that 40,000, that's going to be the cut and patch part of it. There might be some overlap between those two line items, but and again, when we were talking about, just because I know the Hill section has come up, Bryn Mawr has come up. The Hill section, Van believes most of that is in really good shape for 2 to 3 years yet. Bryn Mawr, there is a section on Boardman and I think that's Lake Shore that needs to be in the category of cut and patch. Otherwise, on Bryn Mawr, we think it's just wise to wait until we do water and sewer projects out there because at that point you got to tear the street up anyway and repave it. So that's where we're at on that. And this is taken care of by that 1 cent surtax from the county.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Stated that in your, drive around with Bangkok, the hill section's looking good for the next 3 years. Then you jumped into Bryn Mawr, mentioned Lake Shore, and you mentioned, another street. We also mentioned that it would not be feasible to do or not do resurfacing a road improvement because of our future sewer installation points, water upgrades.
Yes, sir.
All right, so this is me though.
There's some inside.
And maybe I don't want to make it sound like I'm being too isolated, but I'm just gonna kind of put it out there, and I'm gonna be 100 until we get those darn, and I say darn, sewer upgrades, connection, lift station, wherever we're supposed to get in Bryn Mawr. Some of the streets are horrible, and I don't think a pothole patching would do it either. Not all streets in development, but at some point, because I've been hearing it for a minute, and I'm dead 100, that we want to wait and try to take care of two birds with one stone. I'm probably use that analogy, but until the backhoe come there, until the money gets on certain streets, some of those roads are jacked up. And we're budgeting, it's a line item, and we're budgeting for improvements. You even did some run to drive to and looked at areas that need addressing immediately. But at some point, we as the town can't continue having almost $300,000 house on the street, and the street looks jacked up. So how do we go forward as a city, as a town, when we budget? I would say we're budgeting for road improvements, and I do understand clearly, so I'm mention that like last, again, without being redundant, that we do have to get sewer hookup and water improvements in there, but until then, I don't like to see no dollar that we sit and have much discussion about, because, and I'm not going against any area, because Hills section got much love, they had drainage issues, they had every truck going through there, so those roads got fixed. You got Fairfield, had some problems over there, so those roads got fixed in the industrial park. I just like to see, can we come together as a council in town when we have budgets and allocate funds for these roads to be approved?
Let me, two things. One, it feels like we're hanging meat. It is getting a little cold in here. And the other thing.
The math.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All righty. Okay, thanks. Anything else? Okay. All righty. Now what has happened, of course, is that when we were discussing the road improvements and such, my statement was that just based upon visual, much as you stated, was that let's look at other areas because we did the drainage and all of that in the hill section and so forth. Ultimately, what we have to do is turn it over to the engineer, who sort of knows a whole lot more than we do, and because I'm just looking by sight. He has the experience to know that there may be some underlying issues and so forth, and so that was the decision and the recommendation from the engineer, right through our discussions. So, if there's anything else in terms of just recommendations, suggestions, conversations we have as a council, which we've had and we can continue to have, ultimately, the engineer will make a recommendation based upon his or her assessment. But I'll let Ken, if there's anything I sort of missed or.
Just that before we pave anything, obviously, that contract has to be approved by council, so you know well in advance where we're thinking about, and you have the opportunity at that point to say, no, I disagree, I think this, I hate to say it this way, that number for right now, you could look at it as a placeholder.
Right. I think to Councilman Smith's point, he was, and I think you sort of alluded to it earlier. I think, and correct me if I misstate, Councilman Smith, is the decision for repairs. And I think why not? And I guess in the Bryn Mawr section where we have roads and so forth, you alluded to it earlier that we're going to be having some drainage work done, and so we have to tear up the road, so don't repair the road and then tear it up. And I'll let you restate or restate.
Well,
I'll go right ahead and then we'll come to Councilman
thought is,
Green.
and I don't want to be redundant, but the thought was, okay, in the Glenmar section, there's a good bit more water and sewer projects that have to take place, hopefully more sooner than later. And once we do that, the roads are going to have to be torn apart anyway for that. And I guess Van, and he can speak for himself, we'll have him here one night to talk about this. But I guess in his opinion, they're okay for now. That one section of Boardman and Lakeshore, there's a rough area that he recommends is coming here that we cut it out and repave that. But it's just it's a section, it's not an entire street. It's a corner.
Okay. Councilman, a continuation and then Councilman Green.
And ask you.
You go on.
Councilman Green.
Go on.
All right, so that's fine. Then my question, redirect my question. All right, so how do we get to prioritize if that's the case? And if we're relying heavily on the engineer, as we should do, because no one an expert on the days when it comes to road improvements and how they should be constructed. So let me redirect my question then. How do we prioritize and kind of accelerate the sewer situation? If we can't get the road until we get the sewer first, then I think our priorities then should be revisit that, and not just revisit it, but make that a number one priority. And then you can jackhammer the road or whatever you need to do. But we gotta go forward. We just gotta go forward. Don't mean to beat you up, but
I'm not.
but it's constructive criticism. And I say what I say. You got $200,000 homes in that development, and they should at least be able to drive their Mercedes or BMW on the road on access on those roads.
I don't feel like you're beating me up, and I'm not beating you up when I say this, or any council member. Early on in the budget process,
Priority one was.
we gave you a PowerPoint, not PowerPoint, and one of the priorities outlined was some repaving associated with sewer projects. Paxton, Lakeshore, I think Crandon was in there a little bit. What happened from there was, we're talking about the opportunity David's talking about here, and also for the, what we call ARPA money, that's that $800,000 that Uncle Joey's going to be sending us here in a few weeks. The priority came down to, based on council comments, was the well, having that additional well. So the first thing that we would try, and I think I'm capturing everyone's thought here, was to pursue this grant that we talked about tonight. If that didn't work out, then the ARPA money, the recovery money, that would be used for well projects. So that's kind of how we got here. Now, as far as the backup plan for the sewer, I think that's where we gotta get creative. If we pass the idea of bringing back the lobbyist, he or she will have to, there are some programs in the state, the septic to sewer program that we tried for on a couple of occasions but weren't successful. So I think our assistant, our lobbyist, will have to really get busy there. Otherwise, it's an appropriation of town council, and based on, now, the utility account's in better shape, but to support a $1 million, I'll just throw that number out there, it might not be that much, but to support a $800,000 or $1 million sewer project, not even talking about the water side, that would call for some increases.
Right.
Dancing around, let's just see.
Right. I think what it was, the question in terms of just a prevailing thought, what was the rationale behind other areas being prioritized above what he had identified as being the need in the Bryn Mawr section? And I think just in conversation, and I know Ken and I talked about it before when it was first talked about, and I said, well, get with Van, because when I look at it, again, just a unprofessional, not my discipline. It appears as if there's more immediate needs than in the Hill section. Through his expertise and evaluations, he came back and said, well, this would be his priority. So that's how we got to it. That Van and his expertise decided or determined that no, I guess probably what I'm seeing isn't what it is. And that he sort of set a priority that he's now recommending to us. As you stated, we make a decision, but that's his recommendation based upon need. I thought the most immediate thing was Fairfield and East Avenue, where we got the big swell and all of that. Maybe we didn't have, I don't think we had enough to do all of that or whatever. So you take the money that you have and you begin to what do we get the best bang for the buck, right, in terms of prioritization? And then I think the prevailing thought was that if we were to take the money and put it in the Bryn Mawr section, we're going to spend money to do a road that we're going to tear up when we come back through to do the sewer. So that didn't make any sense, is what he was saying, for the most part. Is that correct?
And then he jumped back to.
Well, I mean, just on that part of it?
Yes.
Okay.
We haven't done any road repairs to the hill section. We did a drainage project for the industrial zoning district.
Mhm.
We did nothing to benefit the neighborhood.
Right. I mean, it was sort of as a right. It was sort of incidental to, right. Yeah, but the road was incidental to the drainage and, right. So, okay. Righty, that was where you were on. Okay, Councilwoman Green.
No, I want to respond and add on to what you were saying, because I was going to bring it up in our next meeting under my council comments, because I had already spoken to the town manager about us prioritizing items. And going back, I don't know when the Meritage project is going to get off the ground, but there are things that are going to happen, or should happen, from our little intelligence about developing, that we should be discussing and prioritizing before Meritage. And one begins with the streets in Hill section in here. Because when that project starts, that's when people are going to start complaining. And so why can't we prioritize things such as impact fees? I think that needs to be first, which is going to bring in the road. Which road should be first? What should we be doing about Hill section? I mean, when I don't want to sit here and wait till Meritage starts to be being built.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
And then start complaining. Why
We can't hear you. I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why can't we, don't discuss it now, but can we, I don't know how we're gonna do it, town manager, can we prioritize certain things now, beginning with the roads or wherever we want to put them, and say, this is what we need to discuss now before we start with Meritage? Because the first thing he's done is destroy the road at the end of Boardman. And everybody's walking down there, so I'm asking, well, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? If we prioritize and discuss them now, it'll save a lot of time, save a lot of discussion. So thank you for bringing that up. That's all I had to say.
And I just want to say, I don't disagree with you about the sewer part at all.
Yeah, but I'm saying that we need to, but he's, like he said, start prioritizing things that we need to discuss now. Which items are important? Which roads are important? Why can't we start discussing? Because I was going to ask you, could we start just talking about impact fees? We had a workshop on it, but I learned more from Ms. Albury when she told us how long it's been since we even increased impact fees. So we need to start prioritizing things to be discussed before the project starts.
So impact fees will be coming back soon because of that very reason that we haven't.
But when are we going to discuss impact fees is what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, why can't, anybody else saying?
Well,
Well, can I just state for the record that the Meritage impact fees have already been determined?
See what I mean? I didn't know that.
Once, when you approve the project, then they move forward. They have to pay town impact fees for roads. then
We
that
are-
money becomes part of your budget, and that's where you discuss it.
We already know how much his impact fees are going to be.
Remember, he wanted you to waive the impact fee for roads of $91,000?
I remember that. He wanted us to waive them, but I don't ever remember us deciding that this is what you were gonna pay for impact fees.
Right. Now, what,
The code decides it.
Right.
Yes, that's what it is.
Well, see, that's why I was,
Then you determine which roads you're going to repair based upon the impact fees that you collect from all of your development.
but see, what you're saying, Mr. Albert, is going along with what the councilman is saying. These items, we hit and miss, and we never discussed them, and
well, to the impact fees, what we've done, and we did revisit it, just real quick, and I'll get right to you, I'm sorry, Councilman Smith, is that we did determine, right, that, and I think we sort of passed it at a meeting or two, and we've been discussing, and it's going to come back to us again. What we determine is what is the rate going to be, right? And then when a developer comes in, we don't, that part of it, we don't, as a legislative body, we determine what the rate is going to be, so to speak. The actual collection of it and how much it is happens at staff level, right? And so when we're looking at our budget, each month when we get what's the document that we get every month? So when we're getting that, right, yeah, so we pay attention to that. There was, okay, that we got 50,000 in for that, right? So what happens is that Ken won't call us and say, well, we got 50,000 from so-and-so because that happens at staff level. We've already determined if somebody does something, it's 10%. And so if they do something for 50,000, then send us $5,000. If they do something for 100,000, and they collect and do all of that. So we don't get involved in what generally it was called the minutia of it all. We just set the rate. Okay? Councilwoman Green?
does anybody understand what I'm saying? All I'm saying is, why can't we itemize? I talked to you about it.
You did, and I think it's a good discussion. I think the first thing we got to determine is where we're going with the impact fees.
Not
where
just
we're raising
impact fees, to keep, what I'm saying is, impact fees would be one thing, one item that we would discuss as council. Okay, we got that down. Okay, roads, these are the roads we're gonna do, we discussed that as council, these we're gonna do first, like he's asking. But discuss one at a time, not, we talked about impact fees one time and never went back, and a lot of questions that I have right now, and I don't know about you all, I have, but we never discussed them, I never understood them, maybe I'm just dumb. Because we discussed them one time in a meeting and never went back.
Okay.
Now what I'm saying is do what he just said, maybe.
Okay, well, unfortunately, and you're right, and we need to do it, but in a different setting. This is actually
That's what
just,
I'm saying.
right, this is for the
Not in here,
budget.
because we don't know what
Right,
you were saying.
so Ken will, just get with Ken, with any concerns we have, and he'll look at a time that we set, workshop, kind of thing to consider, prioritizations and all of that, but we have to come back to the budget at this point. And
Because we've gone completely out the budget.
okay, so we come back to the budget, so anything budget related, Councilman? Go right ahead, Councilman Smith. Go right ahead.
All right, so in my wrap up then, as I said earlier, I see a lot of weight decisions on recommendations, and it should be weighed on recommended by engineers. So when the engineer, town manager get together, make their assessments, look at the roads, again, my last and final statement is prioritize what is repaired, and I say repaired, and not particular patch. That's all I'm saying. And I know that Bangkok decision is kind of weighted on recommendation, and that's where we have it as an engineer. And that's all I'm saying. I want to wrap up, but we have gotten away from the budget side. That's not later discussion, so just do that for. Can we agree as a council? I don't want to sound too individual. Can we do that as a council and hope that we get some, I know we will, I don't hope, I know we will get some, resolution and get it done. Can we do that?
I'm going to
So,
drag Van in
what-
here and presentation.
Okay, right, and we appreciate it, no, it's, right. So what we can do, the prioritization list that Van gave, and we all got a copy of it, if you could just send that out again to everybody, right, because that was the prioritization list that he recommended, that we all got, so if you can send that out again, and Okay, and so that when we have whatever setting that we're going to set, or workshop, or whatever, we'll have that for discussion as well. Okay, so we'll back to the budget at this point.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Okay,
You're gonna prioritize what?
No, the road improvements and work, repairs and all of that has already been prioritized at the engineer level. Right, he sent the information to us, we all got it. So what Councilman Smith is saying, can, as a council now, we discuss it? Absolutely, right, but at the proper setting. This is for the budget, and we need to kind of get back to the budget, as you appropriately stated. But that was on his heart, and it was on his mind, so he shared that. And so the statement now is that, and we will set a budget workshop, we will set a workshop to discuss it, once we get the information at hand, okay? So what we gotta,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, that's not what I said.
no, but that's, what we're saying is that from his concern, that's what we've decided to do, is that they're in, and as you stated, and this isn't the setting. So we're
May I
gonna.
ask you a question?
Certainly.
I'm just gonna ask a question. Mr. Town Manager, if you have to wait on, can I come and sit down with you and give you items that I think we should discuss? Item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4.
I hope you will, yes, ma'am.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, absolutely. That's
what I was saying.
well, absolutely.
I'm not the same as him.
Every council person has that ability at any time, absolutely. Okay.
You understood what I said, right? Thank you.
All righty. Okay, we were finishing up on Public Works, page 5. So any other questions as it relates to Public Works, page 5?
Okay.
Okay, so we have nothing for capital outlay at this point. We've got that in another, line 600, that's in another area.
Mostly in the street maintenance area, that's where our
Okay,
money would be going.
all righty.
Down to Parks and Recreation, pretty straightforward, 2 part-time positions.
What number?
Sherry's cleaned up the numbers for us a little bit here.
We have 110, starting at 110.
On page
Page
5,
five.
The last section.
Oh,
there,
okay,
Parks and
gotcha.
Recreation.
Thank you.
Okay,
2 part-time positions. Sorry.
okay.
I would just say the highlights, account number 340, contract services. $15,000 in there for the design of taking the old racquetball court, which is now the storage building, and getting a design for a community building, an additional spot where we can have functions and rent out. We talked about the demand on the community center. We're just looking for additional space to do that. And this has been brought up a couple of times over the years, so we're just going to put some money. May not cost $15,000 to get that design. It could be 10 or less, but that's a number. That's not going to get us any brick and mortar, but that will get us a design anyway.
But if you do that with that building, is there money in there to purchase another building or build another building for the public works?
Not yet, because we don't anticipate. I'm sorry?
I'm saying, whoa, Nelly.
Well, my reasoning is we're not going to be doing anything brick and mortar wise with that building this year. If we decide to, council decides to, then at that point we'd have to come back and address the storage for public works.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just as a thought, even though we're not going to be building or designing the building, within the upcoming budget year, we're going to get a design for it. However, this is a need for our town, and this actual structural development part of it comes funded by the grant district. That's what you're talking about with
With Jared Dorn?
I know Some of them had to talk about a
Okay.
grant that we could use. for that.
Last meeting, that's basically for playground equipment. It's gonna have a couple of benches, park benches, some water fountain, a couple of water fountains. That's basically it, not for the,
Not that.
so we will have some brick and mortar per se as far as the playground equipment coming up soon.
Which-
So that's the county CDBG, Community Development Block Grant.
Not this, not that one. When we were talking about a grant a few meetings ago, that if there were needs from the town that was not identified in a budget, there would be possible consideration for additional projects to be funded out of this additional part of the grant. I thought it was the one that we just got through putting David to.
One that David brought up earlier in the budget process, I think that's the one he was talking about tonight. It said, it can't already be identified in a budget. It's for, and I think he said it's not for shovel-ready projects. But that was for, this, disaster preparedness, hurricane hardening type opportunity.
For the purposeful.
Now, our lobbyist in the past, we were very close to getting a pretty good chunk of money for the park, and the governor vetoed it at the last meeting, so we do have that opportunity.
Okay, Councilwoman Green?
This is another opportunity for me to introduce you to those grants that I just told you about. I learned from the county commission that we can get for 50,000, and the money, if just one of us even apply and get it, could take care of that building, but we can talk about that. One of the things we can itemize and discuss with the council.
Other questions or comments on Public Works?
So, I have a question, so, clear on the brick and mortar side. You say you're gonna convert the facility and just kind of, convert it and, I guess, just paint and stuff like that, no designs, no brick and mortar, so.
Well, it will be expanded.
Okay.
Out or up.
But that's pretty much, okay.
That would most likely be in a different budget, or if we got if somehow we did come across some grant money.
And I'll just suggest a comment now. I think it's, and ask an opportunity, I think from over Salter area, including Post in the future community center there, it makes sense, it to be in the park area, so, nothing wrong with the one that we have, by the railroad track, but I just think it makes sense to, use a Salter area and kind of, have a few hotspots in for the future. We're not at the design part yet. We're not even clear on how it's gonna be funded yet. We just discussed it, but I just think that would be an idea area. And it's just me.
Appreciate that.
Okay. But just before we flip over to the last page, 524 uniforms, is that reflected in another area?
It is. We've consolidated everything under utilities. Because all of those workers, they're gonna be touching something with utilities anyway. So we just consolidated everything under the utility budget in one line item.
Okay, as opposed to the general, which has a couple more dollars?
Page one of utilities, unless y'all have quit, we can come back.
Okay, there was a page 6. Yeah, any questions or comments as relates to page 6 of the general? Alrighty, seeing that there's no questions or comments on page 6 of the general. Okay, I think so much, then we'll move, and all of the numbers do add up to the 3900845.
And of course, in between now and next Tuesday, we'll be double, triple, quadruple checking everything. The sheriff's been very busy on that.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. Okay, we appreciate it. Okay, so we'll go then to the utility.
Utilities, we're pretty much where we were at last week. We feel pretty good about it. There was a concern about line number 2 on page 1, the revenue. So we just simply removed that. And that was in case we're not getting repayment from the non-ad valorem part of the tax bill to that. So that's been removed. That did increase our contingency a little bit in revenue, but we did remove it from that. All the other revenue has stayed the same. Bottom line in revenue is the same as it is in the spend. Just not to be redundant, but the main thing we've done with the utility budget this year that I feel, personally, I feel good about it is we try not to be quite so cheap. We try to make sure we don't leave some of these line items hanging, going over budget, or taking it right to the ceiling. You know, we're trying to make things, and as we get more equipment, we feel like some of these repair costs are going to go down naturally. But we do have it built in just in case, and that way, you know, Roosevelt's not pulling his hair out come March or April, worried about repair money. So that's the main thing. You do have the majority of your water tower painting on line 30 under water department. We are making a down payment out of this year. Next year, when the project's completed, we're guessing sometime around January, we'll make the final payment. The contractor's good with that, so that's the way we roll about it. And we feel good about the other numbers as well. We did include under, on page 2, we did include additional money for what we've been talking about the last 2 or 3 workshops as far as the trainee at the water plant. But that still does include the 3 positions that we talked about. We talked about last week, we're taking 2 part-time positions, making that 3 the same amount of hours. Those 3 are going to rotate hours. So basically, there's no increase there. The increase is going to be with the trainee. Okay? I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments? Okay. Alrighty, so on line 41, the only full-time is going to be the proposed position that we have, and everything else is part.
That's correct. The utility technician is already.
Okay, so when we go over to line 45, we're anticipating that's going to be the amount for that one position. Line 45, health insurance.
Didn't hear the question.
45, health insurance.
That's full-time and part of the code enforcement training / water training. We can't budget for anything except for family possibly when we don't know what we're doing. So we budgeted at the highest amount for 2 full dependent care coverage for families.
Okay. Oh, boy, wow. Only in America.
Actually,
Yeah, 32. Oh,
it's not 2,
oh.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
it's $28.67 per month.
And that would be the top end for healthcare or premium for family?
20%.
Okay. Only in America. Oof. Oh, the cost of health. Oh. Okay. Other questions or comments?
Clarity from, Clerk Sharon. That's how much, pay period, 2867?
Approximately 2867 per month for
Oh, per month.
coverage.
Oh, okay.
Between 2267 and 2867, I can't remember.
Thank you.
And that's for full family. After the third child, there's a cutoff,
And the other kids,
or the fourth child.
Thank the Lord for the cutoff.
kids approaching, okay.
Hmm.
They're gonna cover daycare bill?
We didn't ask for that.
And you
Not,
don't
not
want-
in this budget.
And you don't want that, because it's pricey. For nightmares, so that was.
Okay, so, I'm sorry. Line 50, that's inclusive of the 15 for the Giordano study.
That's,
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
On line 50 on page 2 of the utility, I was just inquiring as to the 45, if that also included was it inclusive of the Giordano study
this is.
that we just
for-
passed?
On the utility side, what we're anticipating there is if we want to enter into an agreement with West Palm Beach,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to have to be a couple of studies performed. And also, they would probably be the ones that assist with the USDA grant loan application and the plant evaluation. Now, part of what he proposed tonight in his grant proposal, that's going to satisfy a little bit of the evaluation of the plant, but not all of it. So we've built in some additional funding for that.
Right. And so it is budgeted here in this line, what we just passed tonight,
No, sir, that's
Okay.
in this year.
this year's budget?
Now,
Okay.
this is completely October.
Okay, line 49, of course, for legislative, we forget things because we don't see it all day long, and staff it appropriately, and we appreciate you guys' memory. On line 49, we moved the attorney fees and we consolidated that somewhere?
We had another, under utilities, I think it's, on line 32. We did put a little bit of money there for litigation, not anticipating that. But yes, most of your attorney fees, supposed to be in the general fund on a monthly retainer basis of $4,000.
Okay, righty. Okay, and our general attorney services cover utility and the whole lot, so, okay.
Yes,
Okay. Any other council comments or questions? Feel free to jump in. Just going line by line.
and Mr. Mayor, I will say that line 65, there's your,
Okay, line 64. Just the unis. Okay, there we go. I was just wondering if they had to come in their church clothes or something. I wasn't sure. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, so we have the best dressed public work utility guys in Palm Beach County.
I've seen Roosevelt's.
Okay, oh, good. All right, any other questions or comments? Any other council comments or questions? Any additional information from staff? Okay, Vice Mayor?
Point of attorney fees you mentioned before, you do have a litigation attorney fees on line 52.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I had it. This is the point that the mayor was asking about attorney fees. You do have litigation attorney fees on line 52.
Mhm.
So I can see what you're doing, two lines.
All righty, 49, of course, will disappear off the final. And we're going to delete that line on the final budget, line 49.
49. Yes, I mean, that's the intent is to, not show any money there. The 1,500 is in a different spot, and that's just in case. Certainly, if there's additional or any litigation, you're gonna know about that ahead of time, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we could, probably do away with line 49.
Yeah. Would make the flow and explanation of it a whole lot better, as opposed to having a category with nothing in it.
Okay.
Alrighty, other questions or comments? Okay, alrighty, feel free, tonight is the night, where if you have any questions, concerns, comments, so that when we come next Tuesday, we'll be at a point where we can almost wrap it up. Any other questions or comments on the budget? Right, if you don't
Go
have.
to, uniforms again, we talked about earlier, so like 55, my question is real simple. What's the size of the boots? Any particular vendor that we're using, for the employees have a choice of vendor that they can use?
They do not.
Okay.
We use Red Wing shoes, and they go there, and then normally we're getting one set of boots per year, but we found that has not been good or enough with the, especially the utility and public, both departments that require uniforms. The boots, they're having to pay the additional amount over the years out of their pocket. And we kept it at $125 for many years. And this year we looked at how, yes, steel-toe boots, they're required to wear a certain kind of boot. I'm sure both of you and Councilmember McCollum would probably be more familiar with it.
Oh, I am, but
And
we did with Granger, but I just got,
we have an account with Granger.
yeah, but my boots still tell OSHA certified.
They
We're not getting
run about
125.
$175 to $250.
They only giving us $100 because those all in the pan of my pocket, but they're still talking.
But they've been paying out of their pocket, and sometimes when the utility breaks are here, and they're down in those holes, or where that water and dirt, even though they're still toe, our former public works employee was walking around with his shoes talking, and several times throughout the year, even when getting a second pair, they could pay for out of pocket, so we increased that line item because of the boots. Boots can run anywhere up to $250.
And because of the boots, Roosevelt.
I'm sorry. Mr. Smith, I mean no disrespect. No. I want you to keep your mask on. It's for the benefit of all of us up here.
Okay.
So the,
I don't think he heard me.
Oh,
thank you.
then the uniforms were a different story. We were making them buy their own pants. Well, we weren't making them. They were buying their own pants because they didn't think we paid for them. So we were being very cheap, and we had to include that in our budget too. So, and of course, the shirts are in and of themselves. They're not like your shirts. They're more like a dry fit.
Yeah.
To keep them cool, and they're long sleeve to protect them. Right.
Okay.
In uniforms, we also get like safety vests.
Right.
Gloves.
Now, you can get steel toes at the swap shop. There's a vendor out there. There's a vendor out there, yeah. Hey, I'm sorry, don't knock the swap shop. Okay,
We'll have the guys line up and go with.
don't knock the swap shop. Yeah, don't knock the swap shop. All right,
No more talking shoes around.
oh. Okay. All right, anything else? Any other questions or comments? We want to make sure we get the draft part of it all done so that we'll have almost the draft final, if you will, on Tuesday. Okay, anything else, Councilman McCollum?
I just like that. I'm sorry.
We go to 66 on the fuel. And break that down to us, line 56.
And that's just, one of those line items, maybe we've, budgeted too cheaply in the past, and with fuel going up. Don't think it'd be a good idea to raise that. That's about all that it's based on. We may have to come back to you and say, hey, we actually need more, but, for now, we think that's pretty safe.
So I'm assuming that fuel is for fuel card to go to a Shell station or something that they provide?
We have a particular place we go to, I can't remember.
Palmdale Oil, which used to be Charles Brown here at Martin Luther King in Congress. And they have a fuel card, but it's recorded, they have to record the mileage when they fill up.
Any card, fuel card, yeah.
And then that's how it's a transparent transaction. And I think usually the director is with them at all times. We don't have numerous fuel cards, it's really just one or two.
Let me ask you this then, and I'm done talking fuel card. So, and I'm familiar with that location. They can go to, it's various places throughout the county that will use fuel commercial vehicles. And so they're limited to, I don't like need to work, and that's where they have to go to fuel their vehicles.
With the account that we have, yes, we don't have the card that allows you to go to multiple stations.
Like a Shell card. Okay.
Right.
All right.
It's just with Palmdale, just because that's what we've become accustomed to using over the years. Before it was Palmdale, it was, I think, Charles Brown.
It was.
I forget what it was before Charles Brown.
Then Charles Brown for a while.
We tried the mobile card, mobile gas here, but that didn't work out very well. We had some issues with some of them when we dispersed the cards. You know, there was specific for, by employee or whatever, signed in or whatever. That didn't work out, so we restricted that card, those cards over the years.
We talked about using a company on Garden Road with Coker Pepsi. That's commercial vehicles go there too.
No, I think we were looking at proximity closest to town. That's when we had mobile, and then we got the next closest thing was Charles Brown fuel at that time.
It makes sense as well. They're
Not
proximity.
go too far out of town, yeah.
Okay, other questions or comments? Okay, ready, hearing none. No other comments or questions? Okay, and if you got Councilman Plummer? No. Okay, you had the mic like you, I thought you had a comment.
Motion to adjourn.
Feel free to make it.
For the second.
Feel free to make it. I keep in mind, it just takes a council member to make the motion.
Well,
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. I'd just like to ask you all a question, and I don't mind you shooting me down and telling me it's stupid. Going back to items, there are certain times and certain items and topics that I'd like for us to discuss, and it won't make happen what happened tonight. And I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think is each one of us?
Well, in the mic, I'm sorry, so we can hear you.
I don't want to do that. Each one of us, like I want to send a list to Mr. Metcalf. And on my list, I want to put entrance to Meritage, lake, and you'll know what lake I'm talking about. The road at the end of Boardman, I call it the Gramercy Road. Everybody's talking about the items like that. Just one word. And by the time he gets my list, there'll probably be 10 items on the list. And then when he gets my list, he's going to probably call me and say, well, what are you talking about? And I can tell him what it is. He can probably explain it. And then I say, okay, then that may be something that we need to bring before each one of us. That's the type of list I'm talking about.
Oh.
What do you
Did everybody hear? Because you stepped out of the mic. So
I don't know why I do that. Thank you. If you all don't think it's a good idea, I don't care. What I'm trying to do is when we come up to items on comments under, when we make comments, that there are things that we discuss one time and we never bring them back. And people in the community, for example, they are driving me crazy, Mr. Metcalf crazy, wanting to know about, well, why did they take away that road? I didn't know either. But I asked you, and I had to have a conversation on the phone before you talked to me. Because I did not know that road, but when he said the road belonged to Mangonia Park, and this doesn't it, and things like that. But they can, items like that he'll already know, and we can bring them up in meetings, and it cuts down a lot of misinformation that's going around in the town. Because I like to know about, number one, I want to have on my list is landscaping and hill section. He brought it up tonight, things like that. We don't never discuss them.
Right.
But that's the type of list I'm talking about.
Okay.
A suggestion is that you send it to Town Manager Metcalf. He
Right.
responds in the manager's report, and when he gets in the meeting, he reiterates it.
I like that. When we get to the meeting, that I bring it up at that point,
Mm-hmm.
not specific to any council member, but here's some suggestions I've had or some topics.
Right, and our suggestion is, to that point, is to do what we do now anyway, but just to reiterate, that when you do, get with the town manager, flush it out. That way, when you come back, it's been vetted, so to speak, and then you just present it. And keep in mind, too, that if we discuss something as a council one time, and that's something that's endearing to you, and you got a lot of concern on the residents' part, they may be expressing it to you or to you or to you, and not everybody. So bring it back up. You have the right as a council person to bring it back up if we fail to address it. So, yes. Yeah, well, yes, and that's the process now. Everything goes through the town manager. You just sit down, talk it through, flush it out, and because you may be able to say, well, we can't do that, and here's why, the code states, just whatever it is, so it's to get flushed out before it comes here, and then we can kind of know that we've gone through a vetting process, and here's a recommendation kind of a thing, okay? But absolutely do that. Okay. Other things? So I'm echoing what you were saying, so, okay. Roddy, the last thing I'll say in this I generally after the budget, we'll have a newsletter that we kind of sent out. Here's what we've done, so forth. As council, if you have like something that you want to do, like from your standpoint, maybe like a quarter page or something like that, get with Ken, so that once we get it, so that we won't say, well, we didn't have an opportunity. Get with Ken, and if you want to do something like that, okay?
Mr. Mayor, I thought that was the purpose of what we talked about, Willie Miller from the county commission's office. We were talking about putting the emails on the water bill.
Something separate. That was different. The actual town's newsletter that goes out to the community. Why? Okay. Well, no. I'm saying if council has something that you want to sort of get out to the community, then get with Ken as it relates to placing it in the newsletter, which is separate. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is something. Yeah. You've seen other municipalities' newsletters, right? And they may have something from council, so and so, from council, so and so.
Get away from put that newsletter.
No, the hard copy of the newsletter, it goes out. People like to see something hard copied, and we make it available online as well. So.
Well, that was why it came up, because our county commissioner is the one that called the office and said, I'd like to send information to Mangonia Park Town Hall so they can disseminate it into, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, now they have to drop mail. They have to spend their money to get the information out. So if I'm understanding what you're saying.
I talk about it.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Oh, certainly. All righty. And with that, okay. Motion. McConnell, you were holding your mic. Go right ahead.
You don't want to prolong. I'll talk about it.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so second? Probably moved in second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. It is carried. Thanks so much. Have a great evening. We'll see you next Tuesday.
We got a break.
To be here at 5:45. 5:45. It has to start at 5:45.
Why?
Next Tuesday.
It's your